Welcome everyone to our Survive and Thrive webinar series. If you're new here, I'm Rachel Perkins, the Education and Outreach Specialist for Texas Oncology Foundation. If you are a cancer patient, caregiver, or professional and want to educate yourself about the cancer world, we invite you to subscribe and join us every second and fourth Tuesday of the month. We are so glad to have you guys here with us today, and we are even more excited to hear from Mary Buffington, teaching us how to create your Thrivorship with SMART goals, which is perfect for the new year. So I'm going to give you guys a little bit of a foundation intro. The Texas Oncology Foundation is dedicated to providing support to cancer patients in the communities where they live, work, and receive treatment. Through Survive and Thrive programming like this one, the foundation can provide educational events and resources to help build community connections and support all affected by cancer. All right. So I have the pleasure of introducing our speaker today, Mary Buffington. She is a nurse, presenter, and coach. She has worked as a nurse since 2006, and in 2018, she began working as a coach and served frontline healthcare workers during the COVID-19 pandemic. In 2022, she launched Arrow and Key Wellness, a wellness company dedicated to helping people reclaim and redefine their physical, mental, and spiritual health in a way that honors their individuality. She believes better health comes when we honor the individual and their unique journey. And so Mary currently offers private coaching, energy work, and wellness classes, both virtually and in Shepherdstown, West Virginia. So Mary, if you want to go ahead and get off mute, we'll get started with this presentation.
Wonderful. I'm so glad to be here today with y'all. I'm coming in from West Virginia. I say we have people all over from Texas. And, Happy New Year. I don't know if y'all have set your goals yet, but we're definitely going to be working on that today. Next slide, please. My goal is to really talk about goals in a sense of what creating us for Thrivorship. And some of the takeaways and goals that I have for this presentation is for us to first off, talk about why goals are actually important and why they should actually be a part of your care and survivorship journey. We're going to talk about we're going to talk about the barriers that exist and really why there's negativity bias towards cancer, limiting stories that impact people's goal setting. That is really unfortunate, but by understanding them, we can actually overcome them better. And then a roadmap to help you easily set goals using the SMART goal process and a couple other steps so that we can really get on your way. And finally, we're going to make a goal together. So next slide, please. Thank you. This is an interactive space. To sort of say what that is, I'm someone that has ADD. I've sat in many, many classes, especially now that I'm in my nurse practitioner program. So I want this to be as interactive as possible. Type in the chat, put your thoughts in, share your experiences. I want you all to let this be a space to play as much as it is to learn. All right, next slide, please. I want to start first off by dedicating this to my mom. My mom is a person that really walked her own path on her cancer journey. She went through two cancers. One was breast cancer, and then later on she developed a secondary leukemia. And she's someone that definitely beat the odds. She took chances and she did stuff during a time period when we were told not to do, that we shouldn't do certain things for the general public during the pandemic. And she really created a life that was what I would call a thrivorship for herself. So I have so much respect for her. She taught me a lot, especially as someone that was a cancer nurse that did not realize my own biases that I carried towards people with cancer. And so my mom really taught me that it doesn't have to be as black and white. Next slide, please. So our first interactive question is, when I ask you about goals, what are some thoughts that come to mind? And you can put this in the chat on the ClassPoint app, or in the general chat if that's easier for you. Yes. I tell you, I've been that girl that's had weight loss on my my resolution goals in many years in the past. Relationships, yes. I tell you, with relationships, it gets interesting because for some people, it's looking for a relationship. For other people, it is the other side of things where there's no sound for that person. Just a heads up, Rachel. Um, but relationships, eating habits, what?
It's okay.
I guess that's a goal. I tell you, these sound clouds are fun. If you're having any issues with your sound, you might want to put it on the webinar chat. But going back in eating habits, we have sobriety. That's been very popular, such as dry January. I don't know if anyone's participating in that this year or not. But yes, these are some great examples. All right. So you can see here, usually they're around our general health, our relationships. Going on to the next slide real quick. But here's my real question for you. During your treatment and survivorship, have you discussed any of your life goals or with your provider, whether it's weight loss, not drinking, finding new relationships, or is this something that you've really been quiet, or is this something that you've never been asked by your provider or even discussed with your provider? Yeah. It's amazing. Like right now, we're seeing this 50-50 moment where there's some people that are saying yeah, there's people that say yes, there's people that say no. And unfortunately, this is a reality where we have a lot of people that when they are going for goals, when they are talking to providers, not all of them feel comfortable actually talking to providers, as we're going to discuss as we move further along in this conversation. And it's unfortunate because you'll be seeing here soon the research that yes. So as research shows, we see a benefit in definitely having conversations with our providers and actually improving quality and outcomes for people with chronic diseases. All right, next slide, please. Why do goals matter? We've seen like some basic goals around general health, but goals are more of a bigger conversation than just about weight loss, our relationships, or even our eating habits. These are the objects of our ambitions and efforts. It's basically very important for how we sort of guide ourselves through life. Next slide, please. If you will, goals give our life direction and it guides us in achieving everything from survival to finding purpose. Next slide. You can see this easily with something called Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And this is something a lot of people don't think about when it comes to goals. But let's dive into some of the research. If you're not familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of needs, this was something that came out of the 1940s, where it identified what motivated people through and what sort of areas are important for people to sort of move forward in life. And he broke it down to three main areas, to 5 areas of this we see the pyramid. At the base, we see our physiological needs, which is food, water, and sleep, the things that basically are a key to our survival. The next being safety, having a safe place to be. And that doesn't just and it doesn't mean like in a physical home, it could be in your environment as well. Like if you're in an environment where your home, it's sort of you might not be able to afford rent, that would be a threat to safety. Love and belonging, having relationships that are meaningful, the things that connect us to other people. As we saw, relationships was one of those next level things we saw in the resolution area. Esteem is sort of how we acquire our skills. It's what gives us our honor recognition, whether it's our being a parent and having children, or it can be things such as going and be a profession thing. For instance, maybe you became a mechanic, maybe you became someone that you decide to go into politics and you became a mayor. These are all things that lead to honor recognition. And the top of the pyramid was self-actualization. And this is living at your highest potential. And this is where you're sort of in that place that you shine. And when we look at this pyramid, you see the base, you can break it down to three key areas: our basic needs, which is basically our psychological needs. Our psychological needs, those are things such as love and belonging, safety, and to some extent esteem. And then our top issues, our top is the self-fulfillment needs. And those are the things that really just fill our cups up and give us reasons for getting out of bed. And these goals are how humans move through our lives and how we move through our needs. And while there's the idea of the pyramid, you need to recognize that sometimes for some people, when they're going through this, they might bounce around a little bit. So they have a strong purpose, but they might be struggling with, again, their food, water, sleep. For instance, our starving artist probably fitted that really well. So while it was created as a pyramid because the idea is you need to sort of have those base needs to really sort of build up to the top of the pyramid. People do bounce around, and deficiency and scarcity, which are very normal emotions for humans. I mean, if we don't have our resources, it's hard to survive traditionally as cavemen. Like, we need resources to get through winters, to get through famines, to get through hardships. And so you have to realize, like, this is based on human evolution, if you will. We needed each of these steps to actually without having a safe place to be. It's going to be very hard to self-actualize. Not saying people can't bypass it, but overall it can be challenging. However, while you look at this, I want to tell you there's something even above this. And this is a relatively new idea that has been more and more explored, and we see it in self-help really prevalent, is the idea of self-transcendence. And that's where we go beyond ourselves and how we connect to either higher reality or purpose. So this is something we see for people when they're looking over the span of their lives, and they're sort of thinking, like, what did I do with my life? Where was the meaning? And this is where they're looking, that's that search for meaning, where they contributed to a greater purpose or being. So for instance, it's not just about becoming a nurse for me. It's looking at how am I helping other people and serving my community. That's moving past myself and looking at the greater things, or serving, if you believe in a higher power, that higher good. And I sort of view that as a star on top of the tree, if you will, or the pyramid, and something that really is important to think about with our goals. Sometimes it is okay to recognize that our goals don't need to be big, lofty things. It's important to realize that they all play a part in helping us achieve the self-transcendence. And so if you have a simple goal of, I want to be able to eat food or have food on the table for my family, that's a very important goal, just as much as what do I want to do with my life. There are just different goals in different areas. All right, next slide, please. And when we look at research, when we think about goals, we can see that there's been research on how this improves our mental health, and that's been the big focus. But one really interesting study I found when I was looking at what the research said was there was an 18-year study, which is a pretty long time when we look at a longitudinal study over a time span, where they looked at over 3,000 adults. And they looked at something called goal persistence, which basically means your motivation to go after your goals or dreams. And in these people, they found lower rates of depression, anxiety, and panic disorders. And this is important to think about with our general health, because we know that anxiety, depression, and panic disorders are tied to other health conditions such as diabetes, heart disease, and even cancer risk. Goals not only improve health and relationships, they also improve work productivity. What does that look like for us and our general lives? So we're going to be focused on where we want to go and view our work as a pathway to get there, and be using goals to help us on that pathway so we do show up better at work. However, something that we have seen with research is that this is something that people do not have good conversations with in the chronic illness space, unfortunately. Most of them do not talk with their providers about what the quality of life actually looks like for them, what their personal goals are. And this is so key and so instrumental as someone that has worked with people across the cancer realm, and also experienced a lot personally with my family. I tell you, it's unfortunate, because if we don't have these conversations, how are we going to actually help people achieve their goals in life and help them actually reach that place of self-transcendence, if you will. And I tell you what's more interesting to me when I was looking at research, both some stuff that I've done personally and stuff that I've looked at in other researchers, is it's very underaddressed and something that providers and cancer survivors do not actually know how to really talk or be on the same page with. I think a lot of time cancer survivors feel like they can't talk about it with their providers. They're not supposed to have these conversations because this is a compartment separate from their goal compartment, and it's a compartmentalization of whose they are. And it's unfortunate because then we don't really get to experience that person. And I tell you, it's when we actually know who the person is and learn about what their goals or dreams are, it is so fun to see them achieve their goals and send us postcards or write letters about what they've done since their cancer journey. One of my favorite memories looking back when I was a newer nurse was this patient that came to us. And her goal was to eventually hike the Appalachian Trail. If you're not familiar with this, it's a trail that runs from it runs from up in Maine and goes down to Georgia. And it's a really long path that it takes about 3 months to do. And she sent us a card one day, a year or two after she finished her treatment, of her standing on one of the mountains with her hiking sticks saying, "I beat cancer and I complete the Appalachian Trail." And it was such a beautiful thing. And it really just fed my soul to see someone go out and achieve a goal. Next slide, please. But let's get down to it. Why aren't goals a part of the conversations we have with cancer survivors? I shared this really inspirational story. Next slide, please. But it's still something that is a barrier and something that we need to recognize, that it's not just something that lives intrinsically in cancer care. It's something that we see across society. And these are normal barriers that exist to goals. Goal conflict and incompatibility are real. And on the right, I'm not sure if you can see it completely, are two amazing little cartoons from memes. I can't believe I called cartoons from the newspaper memes, but anyway, if we look at this, my New Year's resolution is to stop putting my foot in my mouth all the time. I'll bet yours is weight loss, huh? And I'll tell you, it's a very common goal for a lot of people. Or this other one is, it's a to-do list for the first year of January. And this is where we see goal conflict for a lot of people. People set New Year's resolutions all the time, but a lot of people don't achieve them because they have goal conflict or incompatibility. So what does this look like? There's no clear goalpost for this person. So my favorite ones are, I want to be happier this year. I want to be healthier this year. I want to go see new places this year. They're great goals, but a new place could be going to a new truck stop opening up in town, and there you've achieved it. Or I want to be healthier. What does that mean? It might not have clear definitions for that person. Happiness is one of my favorite ones people say, because what does it actually look like to be happier? And when will you know you've actually achieved success? There's a lack of belief in the goal. Again, you can look at these memes and cartoons, and I tell you, they're all over the internet about, well, I'm making this resolution, and they haven't done anything on it, which means just the next one, there's a lack of action where, like, I'm going to lose weight this year, but they have not done anything to begin moving that needle forward. And then finally, we have lack of letting others decide our goals. And we see that actually a lot with cancer care, which I find interesting, where people let their goals be dictated by their providers versus playing, and they're sort of almost in the back seat versus saying they're sitting in the front seat or even in the driver's seat, having the oncologist sort of navigate them with their map. And also finally, a want match. And if you never heard this term, this is where it doesn't actually align with what we truly want or our personal goals or values or beliefs. A great example of this would be if someone said, "Oh, I want to get a new job and be close to but one of their big beliefs there, like core values, is being close to their family, and they get a job in another country." That's going to create a stress level on that belief and potentially put a barrier to them actually achieving that goal. So they either have to change their values or else find a goal that realigns them to those values. All right, next slide, please. Something else that I have seen, and this actually is something that came out of working with my mom, because my mom didn't have a nurse navigator and we were in rural West Virginia. So, in a lot of ways, her and my dad were left to sort of fend for themselves. This is a reality of living in a healthcare desert, and where there was stuff sent to the hospital, but there was no I was the one making sure all those pieces happen. And it made me really recognize, because when you're in that role of being like the nurse daughter, and you're also the you're a nurse daughter, but you're also the daughter, separating those two out, teasing those two pieces out a little bit, you realize how there's a lot of biases you carry towards what should be that person's goals and dreams and desires, and even things that I've had patients tell me themselves. One of those is the priority right now is cancer treatment. Can that definitely can be a priority if you're like in alignment. This is what I choose right now. This is all I want to put my focus in. But at the same time, you're still going to be living a life while you're going through cancer treatment. No, I don't know how many days a week you have to go in, but you're still going to be spending more of your time in your life, and that's something you should actually sort of think about. Like, what is my priority in that space? Another thing is it's best to take it easy and not overdo it. I've had this said to so many people that I've worked with. I've actually had a couple clients that were going through cancer treatment where they wanted to do things and their families were actually discouraging them, or their coworkers were discouraging them, saying that, no, you have to wait right now. You need to take it easy. You shouldn't try so hard. And it's unfortunate because we know that activity is actually good for people going through cancer treatment, and having goals and quality of life in that space, it helps improve outcomes. Um, I'll wait till I get back to normal. I tell you, I love this one because I tell you, if I look at my normal, whatever back to normal is, what 10 years ago is not going to be what it is now, or even a year ago for me. I mean, I had a baby. My life has changed dramatically, even in the past 3, 4 years. I'm not the same person. Going back to normal is not something that is ever going to happen. In ways I got to forge forward. You're too sick to do dot dot dot. And this one really kills me a little bit inside. And it really hurts my heart when people say that they're too sick to do things that they want to do. I do know that there are limitations, and I'm not going to pretend like they don't exist when you're having a bad day with treatment, or you're just you're just having a funk. The reality is we're humans. We have good days and bad days. But when we say that this is a limitation, it's actually a form of ableism, where we look at a person and view them as, well, they can't do something because of they have cancer. And it's unfortunate because it is a bias. And I think it's actually harmful versus looking for ways to support the person around it. You can't do this because you have cancer. My health isn't good enough to do what I want. I don't feel comfortable talking to my doctor about my goals, or I'm just doing what I'm told. As you can see here, these are things that take away a lot of power, and these take away from the ability to achieve personal goals because we take and give all our power to external sources. Next slide, please. I believe it's time to change this narrative. And this picture really won my heart because if you look at these two people that in this picture, we have a person on one side that has an arrow pulled back with their arm, while the other person has a device and they're using their foot to shoot an arrow. And this is in the Paralympics. And I love this because there's been all this narratives for so long. You can't do certain things of X, Y, and Z. And I do believe there are limitations, but I do believe there are ways to work around limitations if this is a desire that we truly have to make happen. Next slide, please. So let's talk about how to make and actually achieve goals. All right, next slide. I love this picture of this lady on a side note. She just inspires me with her big old muscles. I'm like, that's my goal for this year. All right, so when I'm working with people, I like to sort of make things like a straightforward path broken down to different parts to help them achieve their goals. Because I think like when you hear make a SMART goal, okay, what does this look like? How do you actually do this in a meaningful, thoughtful way? So this is using a couple of different methodologies that I've used with different patients and clients that I've worked with to help them understand what their goals are, so that way they can actually make a goal that's going to have the impact that they're looking for. So the first step that I recommend is to actually begin selecting a goal. And it's not just as simple as lose weight. Unless you have a very specific goal in mind, like you want to go back to school to start your, I'm going to say like nurse practitioner because that's my journey right now, then that's going to be like, I'm already good to go. But if you're like, you have 50,000 goals, you don't know where to go, I actually recommend doing something called a goal dump, where you just sit down and you write all your goals on a piece of paper over a brief period of time. Don't go crazy and do it over a week, but I would say like do it over like an hour max. We're going to do a short version of this later on. But the purpose of this section of the goal dump is really just to get it all out of your head and see it on paper, and then even cluster things together to figure out if things sort of align or sort of fit underneath other goals. And then you're going to go through and prioritize them, write them down like this. Once you go through and mark through the ones that are you're interested in, once you're going through and sort of cluster them together, mark through ones that are not ones you want to go after right now, you're going to prioritize things like, what is the number one goal that you really want to work on right now? And then from there, you choose that goal. And then you need to work on checking and be like, does this feel achievable? And does this align with my values? And so how does achievable feel? Do you feel good? Like, yes, this is something that I can go for. This doesn't make me feel like total crap to go after it. And you know what? It aligns with my goals for my family, my long-term dreams, going back to school, whatever that looks like. And then you're going to make it into the actual SMART goal. And we'll be going over SMART goals further here in a second. But the next two steps is to make a plan to go after it, and then evaluate your effort afterwards. And making a plan is basically breaking it down in steps, and we'll talk about that later on, and identifying your support and people that will help you achieve your goal. And then also evaluating is talking about how to celebrate and how to handle failure if you don't achieve your goal. All right, next slide, please. When you look at SMART goals, they are specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time specific. Next slide. When we look at specific, these are things that provide a clear and objective understanding of success. So here's examples on the right are areas that need improvement. If you're saying things like eat healthy, see new places, fall in love, start exercising, y'all, that's not going to be very specific compared to running a specific race. Beta Breakers was one of my goals for one of my New Year's resolutions, and I actually did that at 1 year. It's a race in San Francisco. You run from the bay out to the ocean. Follow the Mediterranean diet is as opposed to eating healthy, is a very specific diet. You know what it is. You're easy to follow. Go to see new places versus go to Greece. I've got a little bit of theme here. I didn't plan it for Mediterranean diet and going to Greece. Don't ask me why. Maybe I just want to go there because this weather here is really rainy and gloomy. And I want to be somewhere pretty and Mediterranean. Fall in love. Go. You can fall in love. Go get a kitten if you want, I guess. But what does that mean? And do you want to have romantic love versus specific? Going on 12 dates this year. And I tell you, I actually had this with one of my clients where we were setting the intention for her to get in a relationship, and her homework was to go on 12 dates this year, and that's only 1 date a month, and she had so much drama around it. It was sort of fun seeing it, but there's a level of, then we had to look at like, what is her want match, what is going back to that goal and compatibility, and actually look at that and tease that part out. Next slide, please. Measurable. How will you determine your progress was made? So is your goal to be happy? If your goal is to be happy, make more time for your family, improve your relationship with spouse, or relax more, those are great, but how are they measurable? People sit time on the couch playing on their phone with their families. Does that mean they're actually spending more time with their family or not? Some more specific measurable things that you can do that would help move it is write a gratitude journal daily. Turn your phone off after 5 p.m. I dare people to do that sometimes. I've actually put that as homework for people. It's so hard to turn it off, especially if you're a little bit of a workaholic, which I have the history of being personally. A date night once weekly. A great way to improve things with your spouse because you're getting that romance back and finding ways to rekindle that romance. Relax more. Meditating for 5 minutes daily. Very specific, very specific, and very measurable. All right, next slide. All right, attainable. Is this something you can realistically do? So I don't know about you, but some of the goals people put out there is sort of like, okay, is that something you can actually do? So things that people will say is buy a new car this year. Be fluent in Spanish in a year. I mean, it's possible, but I mean, is it realistically someone can do? I mean, with their life, get 10 hours of sleep a night. I tell you, I'd love to have 10 hours of sleep a night, but is that something realistically I'm going to get with a 2.5-year-old? Probably not. Stop eating fast food and become a raw vegan. Raw food diets are very hard to do, and it takes a lot of dedication and planning to do. And this can be a really big roadblock for people if they're not setting up making something attainable. So over on the right, we made some attainable examples to make it a little bit easier to see. So saving $200 a month for a down payment for your car would be something that is potentially attainable. Completing 2 Spanish classes this year at a community college is going to start moving that dial forward and is a good step. Going to sleep at 10 p.m. It might not be 10 hours, but 10 p.m. is a reasonable goal to get you to sleep. And then making vegetarian meals 80% of the week is a good step towards going towards maybe eventually going to your raw vegan diet. But, cooking vegetarian meals is a good, easy first step, and it's very attainable for most people. All right, next slide, please. All right, relevant. Oh, relevant. This is where we get back to it has to align with your goals, beliefs, and your values. If it doesn't, then you're probably not going to do it, or else you're going to hate it and regret doing it, or you're not going to achieve it simply. So needs improvement. I tell you, if I had $1 for every time I heard someone say that hates computers, they hate technology, like they're my nurse friends that legitimately they hate typing on the computers and messing with them. Or they're like, I want to go back and learn how to code and make more money. I'm like, you hate computers. Why are you doing this? That's not going to be relevant to that person or align with their beliefs and long-term goals necessarily. Versus someone that says like, hey, I love cars. I'm going to go to school and become a mechanic. Like that is relevant to that person and something that would be good for them to make those steps towards. If someone that's never done public speaking at a public speaking event and wants to do a TED Talk, that's going to be very hard for them to really get to because they've never, I mean, like they might have a lot of anxiety about it. They might have a long-term goal, but that's like really jumping things fastly versus joining Toastmasters and giving their first public speech. And I will tell you, some of them will go back and forth with different areas just to let you know. If you see a couple of these, you could probably see where they could fit in the attainable as well. And then finally, move up the corporate ladder to the executive suite versus identify and work with a mentor on my career goals. Like these are things that are more relevant to that person to help them get to their goal versus trying to do something that's going to really put them in a place where they're going to potentially fail. Next slide, please. And then time specific. The time period, I like to describe it as a good skirt. You don't want it to, you want to keep it short enough to keep things interesting, but long enough to keep everything covered. So when it comes to time specific in this space, you want things that are going to put a little bit of urgency in the situation, but not completely overwhelm you to the point you're not going to do something. So your goal is to lose 100 pounds in 3 months. That is going to feel very overwhelming and probably going to stop you from doing everything except for going on the couch and eating some cookies versus something that's time specific is looking at something where you're losing 30 pounds in 1 year. That's a very realistic and a healthy expectation for weight loss. Finding a new job by the end of the year. Okay, so there's not a lot of urgency there. I mean, anyone could probably find a job sooner versus like applying for a certain amount of jobs each week. That's an easy thing that creates a little bit of sense of urgency without completely overwhelming a person necessarily. And for people that feels that's overwhelming, like what I would do with my clients, and that's looking at like applying 3 jobs, is something we did with, I did something actually I've done with a couple of clients who were looking at a new nursing job or looking for a new career, is I had them apply for different jobs. And what it got them used to is getting used to having their resume ready, having an outfit ready, talking to people and having phone interviews. So that way they were really, if you will, like a well-oiled machine before they went in for their, before they actually end up getting a job that they were excited about. All right, next slide. So putting it all together, this is an example of a good SMART goal, like needs improvements, and then what actually a SMART goal looks like over here. So on the left, I gave you goals that people sometimes will come at with it. Like I will speak Spanish fluently in 3 months. I mean, it's smart, but it's not necessarily the most attainable goal to have for most people. So a smarter goal would be, I will attend 2 Spanish classes at the community college by the end of the year. I will be more healthy and eat less junk food. A lot of people had that last week. Another goal would be I will lose 30 pounds by December using the Mediterranean diet. It's specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time specific. We know that by December, we're going to have a goal met, hopefully. And then I will stop procrastinating on my schoolwork. This is one that I'm very guilty of doing. But I will devote 2 hours of study/work time each day to my schoolwork and improve my grades this year. I'm that person that likes to cram last minute, and it creates a lot of stress for me because that means I'm studying for full days at a time. And so this is something that I'm actually working on personally this year. So that way it will help me towards school. But this is specific, this is measurable, attainable, relevant, and time specific that, by that I'm working on this year by December. All right. So you can see the difference between the two. And just to be clear, like always view it as smart as a checklist versus it actually being like I need to have a specific thing, a measurable thing, an attainable thing, relevant, a relevant thing, and then a time specific thing. Like don't do that. Just be like, all right, is this specific? Check. I can see that I went what specifically I'm going to do. Is this measurable? All right, I'll know if I've completed 2 classes by the end of the year. I can look at December and evaluate. Attainable. Yeah, there's 3. They offer classes in the evenings. I can easily sign up for that. That sounds great. Check. Relevant. Learning Spanish is important to me. I want to be able to communicate better with my patients. And then time specific, it's within a time period. So you can see here, it's just a checklist off to make sure it hits all those SMART goals. Next slide, please. Now, here's the thing. I don't know if you saw on that slide or not where we had those SMART goals, but there's smarter goals. And this is something that takes it a little step further, if you will, that actually can help you be more successful with achieving your goals. And what this will look like is, first off, having a way to evaluate or track your progress, and then a review and reward process. Something people don't really think about with our minds is we have a reward center. It's dopamine pathways, and we actually get joy out of rewards and winning something and completing something. Like it can actually feed that dopamine pathway. It's a pleasure center, if you will. So this is where you get excited and proud of yourself when you've completed something or you got an A on a test. You want to recognize your achievements and create a celebration plan for you and your goal. Whatever your SMART goal is, because it's going to help you achieve it. So don't forget your feedback. Next slide, please. Now let's talk about failure, because I think failure is this thing that people are always afraid of, but failure is a state of being. Failing is what you want to be doing. And it's okay to fail. It is 100% to be like, okay, I failed this process, but it's a part of the success. It is part of the journey. It is not a bad thing. It's just a step towards moving you towards success, because you found a way that didn't work, and it's going to make you better when you move forward for the next step. Something that I have my clients do is an evaluation when they're going through stuff, where they're going to break it down into 3 parts when they're evaluating when they didn't achieve something they were going for. So those things are what went well, what didn't work, and what to do different. So what went well? What things were they like, all right, I really enjoyed, let's say they're doing the Mediterranean diet and they're like, I really liked meal prepping I really liked having the different food each week. I really enjoyed the fresh flavors, but what didn't work is they really didn't like cooking each night. They hated doing that part of it. So what to do different? They might do some meal prepping one day a week, and try that instead of trying to cook a fresh meal each night, just to make their lives a little bit easier. Again, failure is the final state, and if you give up completely, then you have failed. You have reached failure. However, failing is active, and it doesn't have to be your final state. So don't be afraid to take a chance. And oh my goodness, I just threw my pen across the room. Don't be afraid to take it, to fail when you're going through this process, because that means that you still tried. All right, next slide. Now we're going to practice making some goals. All right, next slide, please. I would like to invite you to get a piece of paper out, and we're going to practice making some goals. So that way you can just sort of, get a chance to get some feedback on them if you would like, and just sort of like try this method to see as a first step. I don't know if you've set any goals yet for last week, but you set a goal for the first and you want to try now, to you want to just apply to this is perfect. So if you don't have a clear goal, or if you have a bunch of goals you were trying to work on, I want you to just take about a minute and we're going to do a goal dump. And this can be any goals that you have. They can be silly goals. They can be like, don't like make this a stressful thing. Make it a fun thing. All right. And now I want you to select one goal from that list that you could easily feel that you feel like you could go ahead and select and be like, all right, this feels good. Remember, we're keeping this very simple and very easy for right now. You can apply this to anything later on, or if you have your resolution, you can apply it to that as well. But just select one and one of your goals that you're like, all right, this feels pretty good. This feels like the thing that I really, really want to focus on. All right. Now I want you to look at that goal and looking at the SMART checklist that's on the screen, the specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time specific, and see if it meets those 5 different objectives. And if it doesn't, I want you to try to put some, like, to apply them. So if you're having some things that I see people do with specific is they put multiple goals and they're like, select something to make sure that's very clear. Is it measurable? Like, what is the thing that it makes it like, okay, I have 2 classes? Is it 12 dates? Something that is objectively easy to measure, meaning that everyone could agree on the room, okay, you went on 12 dates. Attainable. Is it something that you realistically can do right now? And that you're like, yes, this is I have the space in my life and I have the time, I have the resources to get there. Relevant. It aligns with your values, beliefs, and long-term goals. So is this actually in alignment with who you are? If not, how could you make it more in alignment with who you are? Or is there something that you would need to sort of explore for yourself to make it where it would be in the right, it would actually be able to take space and be a part of your value system? And then finally, time specific. What is that time window? Is it a week? Is it a month? Is it a year? All right. Give you a few more, I'm gonna give you about 30 more seconds, and then we're going to move over to the next screen and put in our goals.
Yeah, we're going to share our goals, and for anyone who's come in maybe a little bit later, we're doing an interactive session today. So I'm just going to put up on the screen as you guys are finishing the goal setting. You can either use the QR code in order to sign into this interactive class, or you can use the link that I'll add into the chat. And this is what we're using today, just to kind of share. If you don't want to have your name on the screen, you can go ahead and just put like your favorite drink or where you're listening in from as your name. So, or your initials, whatever works best for you. So I'll leave this up for maybe like 30 more seconds, and then we'll go on to the next slide. Okay, Mary?
All right, that sounds perfect.
All right, and then we'll move on to the next screen. And this is where we can enter in our goals.
Awesome. I see some goals coming in. And let's just talk about a couple of them. Thank you, everyone that's sharing them. And so, looking at a couple of these, so I will make a new mom friend before the end of the year. So, specific, like we know about making a new mom friend, measurable. I mean, having a new friend, attainable. I think I would and relevant. I'd probably want to get this one teased out a little bit because I mean, it sounds like a good general goal, but how can we actually make it a little bit more specific? I'd probably want to make it a little bit more specific. You know, what does that look like? Do you want to have a new mom? What sort of friend would that mom friend be? Would this be someone for play dates? Would this be someone that you are going to um, you know, go get mani pedis with? Or is this a mom that you're going to go work out with? Or is it someone that you maybe want to go out and get like nights away with? Having clear understanding of what that, I'd probably want to get a little bit more specific about what that would look like. But these are some great examples. I will study for 2 hours every weekday for school. So I'd probably still want to get this one a little bit more hashed out a little bit. So that way it's sort of, like what would be, that what's because while it's like I will study for 2 hours for school, like, are you trying to improve your grades? Like, what is going to be the actual measurable piece of success there? And I will meet more survivors in my community by joining 2 events before June. That sounds great. So I like this one because I mean, more survive. I would probably sort of specify: are you looking for people to do activities with, or is you're looking for a little bit more like where's the goal for that connecting with more survivors? Is this to build friendships? Is this to build a network to work on a project? I would probably sort of put in there like what would be like you just want to meet, or what is the goal to have from that? Do you want to build a community of people that you're connected with? But beyond that, these are great first steps with goals, and I love them. Thank you so much for sharing. All right. So now that you have your goal, now we got to make a bit more of the roadmap, which is going to the next part, making a plan, breaking down the steps that are involved with the goal. So, what do you need to do to actually make that goal happen? Do you need to sign up to go to the gym? Do you need to put it in your phone and schedule it each day? Is there a need to reach out to a friend or someone that will be able to um, get, or a service that you need to connect with first? Like, you need to break down and sit down on what are all the steps that would get you towards that goal. And then also identifying support. We know that if you can create an environment around you that nurtures the goal, just sort of think about yourself as a garden. If your soil is basically dry, cracked, and it's old and there's no nutrients in it, it's going to be really hard to thrive there. But if we nurture that soil and create a good space for it, that's going to help that goal thrive. So, what would be the tools and resources and help that you would need to help you achieve it? So, for instance, for mom friends, do you need to put a shout out on your Facebook page that says, "Hey, I'm looking to connect with more mom friends. I'm looking at doing," or does anyone know of any activities for moms coming up? Or does anyone know of anyone that is looking to maybe connect? These are some easy ways for mom friend pieces. For tools and resources, this is where, for like the studying question, I'd probably make it a little bit more, how can I support this goal through um, using different resources, like whether studying material or what exactly I'm going to study, or what will I need to complete? Like, do I need to get a calendar? Do I need to get a book to keep track? And then finally, evaluating your effort, celebrating. What will you do when you have achieved your goal? So when you make a new mom friend, if you make a new mom friend by the end of the year, are you going to, do some, like, buy a new pair of clothes? I know people say that a lot of times for when they are doing weight loss, but you can apply some of the same rewards that you see people use for weight loss for these sort of goals. So buying new clothes, get a new pair of sneakers, do something special for yourself. Failing forward, what will you do if you fail? Because, even if you fail, you need to sort of nurture yourself because you still tried, and that still matters. And so I'll leave you with this part of it. This is something you don't have to do in this space, but these are things for you to think about. All right, next slide, please. So the reality is, once we get out of this workshop, you all might feel like, I don't feel like doing anything anymore. I'm sort of done with this. What's one thing that you can share to keep keep yourself motivating? You can share with someone else in here to motivate them. Just like pop it in the chat real quickly, or else put it in the word cloud, and we can finish up with that piece of it here, to basically create this beautiful word cloud to share with each other when we're feeling maybe like, hey, I'm not feeling like I'm going to be able to achieve this. I love enjoy the process. Whenever you're feeling like, I want to recognize the time, and whenever you're feeling like, hey, I don't know if I can do this, I want you to remember these things that are popping up on the screen. Know your values, enjoy the process. You've got this. Goals are possible to achieve. And even if I dare you to put some goal out there and look at the SMART goal you created and try to achieve it or make it happen. Whether it's something you plan for this week or something in a bigger scheme of things, go for it completely and be all in. Next slide, please. All right. If you would like to connect further, if you are feeling like, hey, this goal thing feels really hard, feel free to connect with me. You can either shoot me an email or connect with me on Instagram or Facebook. I'm here to help. Thank you so much.
Mhm.
And attached are some resources as well if you need any of those.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mary. I appreciate your time today. We are so thankful
you,
that we got
Rachel.
to speak with you and that we got to go through our SMART goals. It was nice to have that time set aside to just do a couple more SMART goals. We don't have time for questions today, which is totally fine. But again, if you have questions for Mary, we're going to have her contact information in the follow-up email so that you can contact her directly. I'm going to go ahead and close out the webinar for you guys. Let me get that up. So just a reminder, the session was recorded and it will be sent to all registrants in the follow-up email. It'll also be available on our Texas Oncology Foundation website, so make sure to check that out. You can like our Facebook page and stay current with our foundation there. And we do have a couple upcoming webinars. So come back on January 23rd, where we'll be doing Wellness with Cancer. This is a specific goal setting if you're trying to lose weight or if you're trying to exercise more, and it will help lasting well-being through your cancer journey. And then on February 13th, we have Passion Prevails, Rekindling Intimacy in the Face of Cancer, which is perfect right before Valentine's Day. So those are our upcoming ones. We always meet on the second and fourth Tuesday of every month. Just in view of today's topic, we did want to mention that we do have Grappling with Grief, where we can share resources to anyone who's lost a loved one to cancer. Our support groups can be found on our website. I'll also add that link into the chat now. Okay. And then under education, we have Survive and Thrive webinar series, and that's going to actually show you what we have going on the second and fourth Tuesday of every month. So it has upcoming webinars, it has previous webinars. We have Intimate Connection at End of Life right now is one of the ones that we're highlighting. We just saw Holiday Resilience, Thriving Through Cancer's Challenges, and we will be doing a holiday meditation that you can share with your family and maybe spend 20 minutes. And then for January, we have Wellness with Cancer, Mastering SMART Goals for Lasting Well-Being. So if you're someone who likes to make those January goals, those January New Year's resolutions, this is a good one for you because it's how to create SMART goals that will actually go past the first 2 to 3 weeks of January. So those are some things that we suggest that you guys share with us. Come join with us. We also have support groups. We have Caregiver Connections, Caregiver Survival, Grappling with Grief, and Mentors and Meetups. If you've joined us for any of our education programs, you are invited to join us for Mentors and Meetups. So I know one of the goals was to meet other people, other survivors. So we do have survivorship programs that we'll be meeting every Friday in February online and in person. This is a legacy workshop and we'll be doing cross stitching. So you'll have your hands busy, but we also talk about really deep conversations about survivorship and people going through the cancer process. It also, when you join Mentors and Meetups, it unlocks a virtual private group, which gives you informed information on all of our offerings and first look into it, little sneak peeks. You also get the option to sign up first. So we do highly suggest you join us for that. And then lastly, we value your feedback from our community. So we do have a survey that we'd love you guys to do at the end of this. And it will also pop up once we end the webinar series as well, but I'll go ahead and put it in the chat here if you're interested in doing it now. And yeah, so we really want your thoughts on today's presentation. Share us topics that you would like to hear about in the future. If this is something that kind of sparked your interest, or if there was a goal that you're like, well, I just need a little more help with figuring out how to do this, we would be happy to do a topic on that education piece. And just one last time, Mary, thank you so much for joining us today, and we will see everyone on January 23rd.